Peace and love, man. Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today, I'm going to be talking about the new album from the Avalanches, Wildflower. Before I begin, if you haven't already, make sure to check out my review of Since I Left You, the Avalanches' first album. So, spoilers, I gave that album a 10, and consider it one of only 3 albums I've ever heard in my lifetime to ever give that rating. And of course it was the only album they had ever released, so I got uncontrollably hyped when they finally announced that their sequel was arriving. I didn't even think such a thing could possibly exist, and yet here I am reviewing it. Now, before the album was released, we got 3 singles that sounded almost completely different. First we got Frankie Sinatra, the circus music-like sing-along tune with lyrics about singing calypso and drugs, and excellent rap verses from Danny Brown and MF Doom, as well as a kick-ass Sound of Music sample in the outro. Then we got Colors, the psychedelic dreamscape tune with tons of reversed vocals from Jonathan Donahue. And then we got Subways, the unbelievably catchy disco number based around a sample from then 12-year-old singer Chandra, also easily my favorite of the 3 singles. So, I had no idea what to expect going into this album. As it turns out, the single that turned out to be by far the most indicative was actually probably the least catchy of the 3, Colors. The vast majority of this album is very psychedelic and dreamy, not to mention more sugary than chocolate-covered Skittles and rainbow sherbets. Everything's all bright, sunny, and happy, with song titles like Harmony and Sunshine and Kaleidoscopic Lovers, and what have you. I guess this does make the album title awfully fitting. Much of this album is kind of like running through a field of wildflowers or something. Now, I will have to admit, I didn't think this album was particularly special on first listen. Though, I just told myself that was probably because the version I heard had really bad audio quality. I wasn't sure if songs like The Noisy Eater or Kaleidoscopic Lovers would ever grow on me, and I expected to skip them on future listens after I was done reviewing. But then I picked up the high-quality version, and oh my god did it shoot upwards in quality. I've listened to this album some 7-8 times since, and I think I can say while it doesn't top Since I Left You, I think they've managed to keep up the same standard. And it is pretty amazing in its own right, still recognizable as the same band even though 3 members have since left the outfit. Now I'm just gonna put this out there real quick, I still think Since I Left You is better, and on top of that I think it trumps it in one major category, that being transitions. On Since I Left You, we had pretty much every song seamlessly flow into the next, and feel like just one giant super tight, cohesive piece. While Wildflower is also a continuous mix, it's not quite as tight as Since I Left You. The whole album sounds like it takes place at some kind of festival or carnival, and a lot of tracks kind of fade out into, like, the sound of people having a conversation or something. This especially happened at the beginning. Now there are exceptions, of course. There are more than a few handful of totally seamless transitions. My favorite example being Park Music into Living Underwater is Something Wild into the Wozard of Is. 3 songs that all have separate identities, but flow together perfectly. Another thing is that I think the interludes on Since I Left You were also a little better, although there were less of them. For instance, on here I don't think the opening interlude, The Leaves Were Falling, does a very good job of justifying itself as its own track, and I think it'd be better had they just combined it with Because I'm Me. It is basically like taking the acoustic guitar riff from the beginning of the song Since I Left You and giving it its own song. But there are plenty of other great interludes on here too. Going Home is to Subways what Stay Another Season is to Since I Left You. Again, I kind of prefer Stay Another Season as it had more of a mood shift and had more of an identity, but I'll take more of a song that sounds like Subways any day. Zap is a really smooth and relaxing ambient-ish piece with harmonica. Wildflower, Park Music, and Over the Turnstile all make for nice little dreamy pieces and cool intros to their respective songs. And of course I would be remiss in mentioning my favorite interlude, Livin' Underwater is Something Wild, which is mostly based around a cool sample from Paul McCartney's song Uncle Albert and Admiral Halsey, old favorite of mine. And this kind of repurposes that song as some kind of dreamy movie soundtrack piece. But of course, let's get into the meat of the album. The full-length songs. Because I'm Me could have been a single as well. It's a little slower than Subways, but it's no less intense. Really has that old 70s disco-ish feel to it. And there's some nice rap verses from Camp Lo as well. If I Was a Folkstar is another dreamier and more relaxed piece that transitions out of Subways and Going Home rather effectively, with a very smooth feature from Toro y Moi. Then there's the Noisy Eater, which is far and away the weirdest track on here, which features Biz Markie rapping about food and making a lot of eating noises, as well as an out-of-nowhere sample of Come Together by the Beatles, sounding like it's sung by a crowd of kids. I thought this track would get old and grating really quickly, but I've turned out to pull a complete 180 on it. It is basically the frontier psychiatrist of this album that seems to stick out like a sore thumb but is still lots of fun. Well, this and Frankie Sinatra. Then there's Harmony and Live a Lifetime Love. The latter is much more distinctive, with some cool rap verses, and it catches me off guard every time I hear it. Although I think I like the simplistic catchiness of the former just a little more. The Wozard of Is has been haunting me and been playing in my head during video editing. That sample at the beginning is just really dang catchy.
There was magic in this splendor and desire to surrender.
But it also has a pretty cool rap verse from Danny Brown as well. I think I prefer his verse on Frankie Sinatra, but I digress. Sunshine is another track that I thought would get tiring quickly thanks to its repetitive sunshine sample. But this one still puts a smile on my face, much like Tonight did on Since I Left You. Then there's the ending. Kaleidoscopic Lovers I did not particularly like on first listen, but it has grown on me since then. It is pretty memorable, and I know how it goes pretty well. Step Kids, meanwhile, is kind of the other way around. I really liked it on first listen, and it is still lots of fun while I'm listening to it, but it's not very catchy, and I have a hard time remembering how it goes. So basically, this album's equivalent to Ito. It all ends with Saturday Night Inside Out, which is both very distinctive and memorable, with lots of weird shifting vocal samples, at least I think they're vocal samples, I don't know, and spoken word from Father John Misty, but it's also quite catchy and has a nice groove as well. Definitely a nice way to close out the album. So, overall, I think this was about as good as I could reasonably want a sequel to a 10 out of 10 one-album wonder to be. It doesn't top Since I Left You, but it doesn't really try to either. Everything's grown on me quite a bit since the first listen, and I can only imagine it getting even better as time goes on. Now, I was planning on giving this album an 8.7 out of 10, a rating I really only save for old albums that have recently become really special to me, but the other day, something really clicked with me and this album when I came to this realization. This is 2016. This is one of the worst years in recent history. The news sucks, politics suck, the election sucks, the UK going nuts sucks, the dozens of celebrity deaths all suck, and I even get people telling me I suck on a fairly regular basis thanks to 2 recent reviews blowing up ironically. Okay, maybe that last one's not that big a deal, but the point is, 2016 has been a really depressing year, and there's nothing this year that I could have needed more than the Avalanches coming back from their 16-year hiatus and dropping an album chock full of sunshine and rainbows and peace and love. Dang it, we really needed an album like this in a year like this. For that, I give it that little extra quarter point and raise it to a solid 9. Guys, if you're watching, thanks for this outpouring of love, and I offer my outpouring of love in return. Favorite tracks: Because I'm Me, Frankie Sinatra, Subways, If I Was a Folkstar, Colors, The Noisy Eater, Harmony, The Wozard of Is, Sunshine, and Saturday Night Inside Out. Least favorite track, The Leaves Were Falling. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. Peace out. And see you next time.